For spine-chilling and sinister true boardwalk horror tales exposed, unexplainable secrets revealed. The air was thick with laughter, screams, and the lingering scent of fried dough. Sarah held tightly to her two children's hands as they stepped onto the iconic boardwalk, alive with color and vibrancy. She had needed this day, a much-needed distraction from the storm that brewed in her heart since her husband's departure. But beneath the joyful facade, a darker reality loomed. Whispers of children gone missing, swallowed by an unfathomable darkness, haunted the edges of the carnival. Too many had vanished, 3 children over the years, legends spun about them twisting deeper with every sunset. The boardwalk seemed innocent enough, but as night approached, that innocent veneer slipped. A chill wormed its way into Sarah's spine when her gaze locked onto a figure lurking at the periphery. He stood alone, a shadow among shadows, eyes glinting like shards of glass. His unsettling grin made Sarah's pulse quicken, instinct clawing at her heart. Fables of the boardwalk spun in her mind. This was just folklore, she thought, trying to shake off the nagging fear. But as twilight deepened, laughter morphed into uneasy whispers, shadows grew longer, thicker. She glanced back at her kids, their joy evaporating like the day's light. As her phone flickered and died, a deep unease settled over her, a premonition she couldn't ignore. Families drifted away, dissolving like wisps of smoke in the air, leaving behind an increasingly haunting silence. "Mom, where's everyone going?" asked her daughter, voice shaky. Panic tightened in Sarah's chest. "We're leaving soon, just a little longer," she lied. But when another child's giggle ended abruptly, swallowed by stillness, she knew they had to move. The comforting glow of the game stalls dimmed, the cheerful carnival music faded into nothingness, eerie quiet settling like a thick blanket over them. Pushing through her rising fear, they stumbled upon a crumbling tunnel beneath the boardwalk, its entrance hidden in shadows. It beckoned, the dark opening thick with history stories of lost children entwined with her own growing dread. This was it, the unmarked threshold between safety and the terror lurking just out of sight. With each reluctant step forward, Sarah felt the weight of despair pressing down. The further she went, the more she felt that chill creeping up her spine, whispering tales of that darkness, how it preys on fear, cloaked in familiarity. Her heart pounded as an ear-splitting crack echoed around them, shadows on the walls flickering momentarily like ghosts caught in the light before they were snuffed out. Panic clawed at her throat. What was she doing? Just then, before Sarah could even think of turning back, that familiar twisted grin appeared before her. The man from the carnival. Shadows danced at the edges of her vision, the air thickening with a force she couldn't understand. He loomed closer, and the echoes of children's laughter faded away, leaving nothing but a chilling silence. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. It was here, in this dank tunnel under the boardwalk, that the weight of betrayal struck her. Faces of people she trusted morphed into terrifying shapes, agents of danger masked as protectors. A pier that once symbolized excitement now betrayed the bad dreams hidden beneath it. Just as she turned to flee, a piercing shriek echoed from the darkness. The man was closing in. Will they escape this nightmare alive, or would they too become part of the boardwalk's chilling folklore? The man's grin widened, shadows twisting around him like serpents. He looked almost welcoming against the darkness, but the truth twisted in Sarah's stomach. Are you lost? He inquired, voice smooth like oil over water, oily and suffocating. Get away from us! She shouted, desperate. Her children squeezed her hands tighter. This way, it's safer, he murmured, gesturing deeper into the tunnel. But the deeper they went, the more they could feel the air shift, thick with something sinister. No! She shouted again. Her heart slammed against her ribs, and instinct surged. She tugged at her children's hands to pull them away, but the man didn't back off. "Don't you want to play?" he asked, eyes glittering. "There are games down here, just waiting for you." A chill settled over Sarah, the implication sinking like a stone. She yanked her kids back, ready to run, but the darkness swirled around them, entwining them tighter in its grasp. The tunnel echoed with distant sounds, giggling, faint and warped, as if it came from the walls themselves. What felt like the breath of forgotten children brushed against them, sending shivers racing down Sarah's spine. "Mom, I'm scared," her son whispered, trembling. "Hold on tight," she urged, backing away slowly, eyes locked on the grinning man. But he simply stepped forward, moving with a twisted grace, shadows weaving behind him, consuming the limited light. "Don't be so hasty," he crooned. "You have no idea what fun awaits." A low rumble answered him from deeper within the tunnel, an unsettling vibration that thrummed through the walls. It felt like an ominous warning, resonating with her dread. Sarah turned and bolted back down the tunnel, pulling her children with her. The darkness shifted, something lurking just out of view, as if the very walls were alive, reaching for them. Behind them, the man's laughter echoed, cold and mocking, as they ran into the abyss. "Mom!" her daughter cried, her voice trembling. "Just a little further," Sarah urged, adrenaline propelling her forward. The laughter faded, but the feeling of being watched never left. They burst out into a dimly lit section of the boardwalk, away from the tunnel, unfamiliar, distorted. The joyful noise had become an unsettling cacophony. Bright lights now flickered erratically, creating a strobe effect that hurt her eyes. Fingers of cold sweat ran down her back as she scanned the area. The crowds were gone, but she could still hear the faint echoes of laughter that made her stomach turn. Figures loomed in the distance, distorted silhouettes against the vibrant colors of the carnival. They didn't look normal, stretched features and hollow eyes turned towards her, shadows moving with unnatural fluidity. "Look, Mom!" Her son pointed ahead, and Sarah's heart dropped. A small girl stood alone by a vibrant carousel, but something in her demeanor felt off. "Stay close," Sarah instructed as they approached. The girl turned slowly, revealing not just pale skin but eyes that seemed to glow. Her grin was too wide, too empty, and her laughter shattered the silent whispers swirling in the night. "There's plenty of room for you," she said, voice echoing like a chant through the quiet, making the hair on Sarah's arms stand up. Suddenly, the ground shook, a deep rumble vibrating through the air, and the shadows elongated around them. Sarah's mind raced. Was this the fabled fate of those lost children now terrifyingly real before them? Just as the girl began to step forward, the tunnel's darkness behind them pulsated with a new intensity, and Sarah realized, it was now or never. Would they flee into the unknown darkness or give in to the perilous pulse of the carnival that never sleeps? Terror coursed through her veins, racing against time as the shadows began to converge around them, pulling them back toward the tunnel, toward the man. The carousel creaked ominously, each rotation revealing a new ghastly grin among its painted horses, their eyes glistening with an energy that felt far too alive. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest, a frantic rhythm against the horror unfolding before her. Her pulse quickened as the girl stepped forward, fingers outstretched, beckoning them. "Mom!" her daughter whimpered, shrinking behind her. "Don't move," Sarah warned, her voice fierce despite the tremor within it. The world around them twisted, the shadows coiling tighter, choking off their escape. The girl's laughter danced on the air, a sickly sweet melody that hung like a cloud of poison. The tendrils of darkness slithered closer, hungry and insistent, as if the carnival itself were alive, conspiring to trap them. "Come play with us. We can be friends," the girl sang, and Sarah felt a shiver chase along her skin, every instinct screaming to flee. "No! We have to go!" Sarah shouted, gripping her children's hands tightly, her nails digging into their flesh as the fear morphed into raw panic. They needed to move, but where? The carnival was a maze of nightmares, an untamed beast ready to pounce. Behind them, the echo of distorted laughter grew louder, merging with the unsettling whispers from the tunnel. Had the man followed them? She glanced over her shoulder, half expecting to see him emerge from the shadows, that wicked smile stretching wider. Just then, the ground quaked again. Pieces of the world shifted beneath her feet, a carnival mirage threatening to swallow them whole. Flickering lights cast bizarre shapes, the laughter transforming into a cacophony of angry shrieks. Sarah turned and sprinted back towards the tunnel's mouth, desperate to escape the maddening chaos. "Mom, what's happening?" her son cried, stumbling as they ran. "Keep up," she panted, feeling the weight of despair claw at her throat. No longer did they feel like active participants, they were prey, chased by something ancient and hungry. With each step, the air thickened, the shadows reached farther, pooling beneath the eerie lights. Figures emerged, faces twisted in expressions of glee, mocking them deceased remnants of carnival goers, forever trapped in a loop of horror. "Are you coming to join the fun?" A man with a grotesque clown face called out, his voice a sickening echo. Sarah felt bile rise in her throat. "Not today," she shouted back, the words an affirmation of her will to protect her children at all costs. Yet, the tunnel loomed ahead, dark and inviting, a sinister maw opening to swallow them whole. The grinning man's call echoed in her mind, the twisted promise of safety tugging at her resolve. They could run forever, but the relentless pressure from the darkness would never cease. "Mom, I don't want to go back there," her daughter whimpered, tears streaking down her face, and Sarah's own heart twisted with fear. "Then we need to break free," she snapped, taking a sharp turn towards the main attraction of the carnival, a rickety Ferris wheel looming high against the night sky. The moment she made her choice, the night erupted as the shadows howled, the carnival growing more frantic. With unyielding determination, Sarah ushered her children towards the base of the Ferris wheel. Each step felt like a tightrope walk over a chasm filled with unfathomable terror. "Climb!" Sarah shouted, pushing her kids ahead, and when her son hesitated, she lifted him effortlessly, her fear morphing into strength. They climbed into a cramped carriage, the metal cold under her fingers. As the wheel began to move, rising above the sinister carnival, Sarah thought they were safe. A sweet taste of relief washed over her. Until, from the ground below, she heard it, the man's voice. "You can't run from me." Not ever gazing down through the tinted glass, she saw him, the shadows clinging to him like spiders, grinning up at them, eyes vacant yet hungry. "No!" she gasped, a chill racing up her spine. What had they awakened? What secrets lay waiting in this cursed carnival? The Ferris wheel creaked higher, but it felt like only a temporary reprieve. As the carnival below writhed in a nightmarish dance, Sarah clung to her children, her heart pounding against the terrifying unknown. What awaited them when the ride finally descended? Would they face the man with the savoring grin again, or would something far worse emerge from the depths of the darkness? The Ferris wheel jerked and shuddered, ascending higher into the night, a macabre mechanical whisper against the backdrop of shrill screams below. Sarah held her breath, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Each flicker of the carnival lights danced like the devils of desperation on a precipice. "Mom, I don't like this." Her son's voice was small, but it unfolded into her thoughts like a knife. "Just hold on," she said, too close to hysteria to sound reassuring. The wheel creaked, and horror seeped into the cold air. As they rose, the grotesque figures below blended into a swirling mass, caught in a time loop of insanity and glee. The man below, still grinning, was stepping closer, his form melding with the darkness. Shadows splintered from him like dark tendrils reaching for her, reaching for them. As the wheel reached its peak, Sarah glanced around, searching for an answer, a lifeline, anything to pull her out of this waking nightmare. The sight stretched infinitely, the carnival a dizzying nightmarescape of twinkling lights and horrified shrieks. Then, with a sudden lurch, the wheel stalled at the top, hanging over the ominous abyss below. Time ceased as a thick silence enveloped them, a malicious void, holding its breath. "Why aren't we moving?" her daughter whispered, her eyes wide with terror. "Just wait," Sarah responded, though her voice fractured with uncertainty. But then she felt it, a chilling breeze, pungent with decay and lingering despair. The world beneath them pulsed, alive with menacing energy. From the depths of the darkness, an angry cacophony erupted. It was a deafening, ugly rage, no longer laughter, more like an unholy chorus mourning their fates. "Mom, look!" her son shouted, pointing towards a corner of the carnival where flickering lights illuminated grotesque puppets swinging and twisting in stuttering motions, their strings tangled, heads lolling back and forth, mouths cycling on silent screams. "Get back down!" Sarah yelled, panic lacing her words. But the urgency in her voice only seemed to invigorate the puppet-like figures lurking below, as if they drew strength from her despair. Suddenly, the Ferris wheel jolted violently, propelling them downwards with force. Sarah clutched her children tighter, the wind howling past them like something hungry, something eager for its prey. "Mom! Mom!" The descent felt eternal, each agonizing second stretching into infinity. Shadows surged upwards, reaching hungrily, as if trying to grasp them during their plunge. The crowd at the carnival seemed to part, creating a vortex of darkness, a shadowy nothingness, waiting. Then, with a heart-stopping crash, the ride came to an abrupt halt, slamming them hard against the safety bar. Dazed, Sarah gasped, the icy steel burning her palms. She looked around, desperately scanning the area for any escape. Panic clawed at her throat as she spotted the same girl, grinning wider than ever, now surrounded by a throng of lost souls, all beckoning with outstretched hands. "Come play with us forever!" they cried, their voices a ghastly harmony mingling with the unsettling laughter of the girl. "Run!" Sarah shouted, adrenaline surging as she yanked her children from the carriage. They bolted into the swirling mass of the carnival, hearts racing, minds racing, fighting against the sinful tides, but just ahead, the grinning man stood, straight and powerful, shadows pooling like liquid darkness around his feet. He turned, his gaze locking onto Sarah, those vacant eyes filled with insatiable desire. The carnival heaved behind them, a beast awakened, hungry and twisted. Where would they go? Would they find safety or be consumed whole by the insanity lurking just beneath the surface? The oppressive darkness surged, and Sarah knew they had to discover the truth fast, or they would join the unmistakable crowd of doomed souls that danced in the shadows forever. What sinister truths lay within this accursed carnival? Would survival mean embracing the terror themselves? The shadows stretched and twisted as Sarah pulled her children along, talons of terror clawing at her heels. The carnival pulsed with lifelike hunger, colors flashing too brightly, too unnaturally, dragooning them deeper into its grasp. The grinning figure loomed nearer, and the eerie giggles of the lost souls reverberated through the chaotic air, a chorus of madness begging for companionship. "Mom! Where do we go?" Her son's voice trembled, each word fracturing under the weight of fear. "Anywhere but here," she shouted, turning sharply down a narrow alley between two stalls, their fading light flickering like dying stars. The cobblestone path trembled beneath their feet, a heartbeat pushing them onward, impossible and real all at once. The air thickened, suffocating, muddled with the sickly sweet scent of cotton candy combined with something rotten. Distant wails echoed, muffled screams resonating against the dilapidated walls of the carnival's forgotten corners. A carnival worker, tall and skeletal with jagged teeth that protruded through cracked lips, emerged from the shadows like a nightmare resurfacing. With eyes like black holes, he pointed a bony finger at her. "Lost little lambs," he crooned, "why not join the show?" Sarah instinctively grasped her children's hands tighter, pulling them closer against her side. They moved faster, the manic energy of the carnival ablaze in colors that felt almost alive, wrapping around them, holding them captive. The worker's laughter echoed, a sinister chime that chased after them, lingering just behind their shoulders. "Come back!" He coaxed, the glee in his voice coupled with a chilling edge that sent shivers down her spine. Another figure appeared as they rounded the corner, a child, perhaps no older than her daughter, skin pale and ashen, eyes void of life yet filled with an unholy light. "Mommy! Help us!" she screamed, reaching out with trembling fingers. Guilt shot through Sarah's heart, but there was no choice now. "Don't look!" she shouted, pulling her children's gaze away from the girl's outstretched hand. A sudden movement caught her eye. The grinning man was close, the shadows dripping from him like ink in water, growing and enveloping around him, eager to pull them into his realm of nightmares. Panic escalated, instinct driving them onward. "Over there!" Sarah gasped, spotting the entrance to a tent stretched deeply across the turf, the worn facade blending into the canvas of the night. They dashed inside, darkness swallowing them whole. The damp air felt oppressive, the fabric walls were alive, shifting and swirling. Faint echoes emerged, distant laughter dancing with cries of despair. "Please, God, no," she breathed, the sound escaping like a prayer. She pressed against the walls, straining to listen, but the noises warred against her heart, creating screams inside her head. And then it struck her, a flash of memory from years ago. A tale told at the campfire, saltwater crashing against the shore, whispers of a carnival curse to trap souls for eternity, the price of everlasting fun. "Mom, what's happening?" her son whimpered, eyes glimmering with tears. "Stay close. We need to find a way out." But as the chilling realization started to fester, the walls seemed to pulse, thrumming with unseen hands. A low growl reverberated, and the entrance flickered into dim visibility, yanked open by unseen forces, shadows twisting and coiling just outside. The haunting grin of the grinning man pierced through, more menacing than ever, as the puppet-like figures started to spill inside, eyes cold and unblinking. Sarah's heart raced. They had to escape, but the carnival wanted them, needed them to fill its ever-hungry void. "Run!" she screamed, but the very fabric of the tent warped, a relentless void, suffocating their escape. Shadows extended toward them, fingers longing to touch. With a burst of energy, Sarah pulled her children, making for the far end of darkness, praying for an exit. And just as she reached a light flickering at the end, an impossible sight met her gaze, the grinning man. He laughed. Hysterically, the fun has just begun. Could they break free before the carnival chose them? The encroaching shadows closed in, and her mind spiraled, teetering on the brink of capture. Could they find salvation, or would they succumb to this carnival's hell of despair? The grinning man stepped into the dimness, his presence like a shadow that devoured hope. Sarah froze, the light flickering above casting twisted shapes that mingled with the growing dread curling around her heart. The air crackled with a malevolent energy, and terror seized her lungs, squeezing the breath from her chest. "Get back!" she whirled to her children, panic sparking in her eyes. "We have to go. Now!" Her daughter's face was pale, eyes wide, and Sarah's grip tightened. They stumbled backward, retreating from the grinning man who seemed to take pleasure in their fear, his laughter a chorus of madness echoing in the oppressive space. They dashed toward the rear of the tent, but the walls swayed, warping and shifting as if alive, grasping at them like the claws of some dormant beast. Every step felt weighed down by unseen chains, pulling them back into the darkness. "Mommy!" her son cried, his fingers slipping from her grasp. "Hold on. Don't let go!" she yelled, a rush of adrenaline propelling her forward. But the shadows surged, twisted tendrils of darkness that coiled around her ankles, trying to trip her and pull her down. The laughter intensified, a cacophony of despair and glee. Beyond the walls, she could hear the cries of those who had come before, trapped in a hell of their own making. The memories of lost souls permeated the festering air, a horrible reminder of her worst fears. "Mom!" her son's voice broke through the noise, shaky yet urgent. She turned just in time to see him yanked backward, a force unseen tugging him toward the mouth of the tent. "No!" Sarah screeched, lunging forward. She felt her heart race as she dove, clasping his tiny wrist just as he was about to disappear into the dark slits writhing at the edge of the entrance. She pulled him back, adrenaline coursing through her veins like wildfire, but there was no time to celebrate. The tent walls shuddered in response, a low growl rumbling like thunder, the laughter morphed into howls, and the shadows thickened, the figures lurking beyond the fabric transforming into grotesque silhouettes, beckoning them to join the show. Yet, amidst the chaos, a flicker of hope ignited within Sarah the other end of the tent. The brilliant flash illuminated by the dying light beyond whispered promises of freedom. "They want us!" Her daughter cried out, an eerie echo of the pale child's voice from before. "No! They will take us unless we're faster," Sarah urged, pushing then trailing her children as they charged toward the distant glow. Each step was a battle against an unseen force trying to ensnare them, dragging at their heels. Behind them, the grinning figure's laughter grew louder, a twisted melody reverberating off the walls. "You can't escape. You belong here." Sarah forced herself to look forward, refusing to let the words seep into her heart. "Run. Don't stop." The darkness quaked and the fabric of the tent seemed to fold in on itself, blocking their escape in morbid anticipation. With a final effort, Sarah's outstretched hand reached the shimmering light as she pulled her children behind her like a shield. The shadows encroached, and they were nearly engulfed when suddenly, they broke through the veil of darkness, bursting into an open expanse, an abandoned carnival ground illuminated by a sickly moonlight. Several decaying rides dotted the landscape, forgotten sights of joy long extinguished. "Where are we?" Her son whimpered, doubt and dread flooding his voice. Sarah gasped, looking around. But the horror of the carnival persisted, the laughter and cries emanated around them still. The figures they had evaded now loomed at the edges of the clearing, their faceless masks grinning wider in the moonlight. "Are we safe?" her daughter whimpered, glancing behind. "No!" Sarah shouted, feeling the coldness clutching at her heart again. "We need to run." As they turned, a rumble cut through the air, sharp as a knife. It wasn't just laughter anymore. It was the call of the carnival, and it knew they had stepped out. But what awaited them beyond the shadows, the chilling echoes whispered. In triumph. "Come back, we're just getting started." As they sprinted into the night, a sense of dread surged through her. Had they really escaped? Or was this merely the beginning of a more terrifying game? The ground felt uneven beneath Sarah's feet, each step an echo of the distorted laughter still ringing in her ears. The carnival, the place that was once a haven of joy, had morphed into something sinister, a festering drain of nightmares. Shadows slithered in the corners of her vision, the masked figures still lurking at the edge, watching. "Mom, I don't want to play anymore," her son whimpered, his voice a fragile thread threatening to snap. "Just hold my hand tight," Sarah urged, squeezing his small hand as they broke into a frantic sprint across the cracked pavement. The skeletal remains of rides loomed around them, twisted and derelict, like teeth of a monster lying in wait. Behind them, the laughter rolled like waves, crashing against their resolve. It twisted and turned, a terrible melody that made Sarah's stomach churn. She forced herself to look ahead, desperate for escape. In the distance, flickering lights beckoned a ghostly carousel with a few forlorn horses moving listlessly in the stale air, their paint peeling and eyes hollow. "Do you see?" she gasped between heavy breaths. "There might be a way out over there." But as soon as they changed direction, the shadows shifted too, darting forward, hungry and pulsating with energy, clawing at their heels. "Faster!" she cried, terror propelling her as adrenaline surged through her. Yet with every urgent step, the air thickened. A weight clung to her, dragging them down, as if the ground itself was conspiring against them. They reached the carousel, and Sarah's heart raced even more as she saw the grimy, rusty brass pole shining in the light. "Get on!" she urged, pushing her kids onto a tired, faded horse while she climbed onto another, the wood rough against her fingertips. The moment the carousel started to turn, a chilling sense of familiarity washed over her. A sense of displacement. She had been here before, 1,000 lifetimes ago, watching the haunting smiles of children as they spun in manic delight. But now, those smiles felt like a curse, steeped in madness and hunger. "Mommy, the lights!" her daughter shouted, pointing, and for a brief moment, Sarah felt a pang of hope. A string of multicolored bulbs flickered, pulsing with an energy that promised safety. But as they circled and the horses rose and fell, the ceaseless laughter morphed into something else, screams intertwined with mocking giggles, echoing their fears back at them. It seeped into her skin, giving her a cold sweat that clung to her bones. "Mom!" her son squealed as he gripped the reins tight, eyes wide with disbelief. "They're coming!" The figures materialized from the shadows, gliding toward them with movements stark yet fluid, faceless masks casting eerie grins. One stepped forward, its voice slithering through the air like a snake. "You thought you could escape? The show is far from over." Sarah's heartbeat thudded painfully in her chest. The carousel slowed, and she could feel the relentless grip of fear tightening around her throat, choking her resolve. "Get off! Now!" she shouted, and they scrambled down, the urgency of her voice cutting through the noise. Each child hit the ground hard, but they had no time to dwell on pain. They tore away from the carousel, darting through the shadows of the carnival, but the grinning figures flowed after them like smoke, like a twisted dream in pursuit. "Where do we go?" her daughter cried, frantic, her eyes darting left and right. "Anywhere that isn't here," Sarah shouted, urging them forward, but the darkness felt endless. Every turn led them deeper into the belly of the beast. Then she saw it, a flimsy door set into a rickety building, weathered and splintered. It swayed slightly in the breeze as if inviting its next victims. "Over there!" she shouted, pushing them ahead as they barreled toward it. Just as they reached for the handle, the laughter crescendoed again, a fierce tidal wave ready to drown them. "This way!" Sarah screamed, shoving the door open just as tendrils of dark shadow grasped at the hem of her shirt. The moment they crossed the threshold, the world behind them ignited in an outpour of shrieks, the carnival screaming for its lost prize. Inside, the air was stale and thick. A cold wind kissed their cheeks, and they stumbled into a room lit by a single flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling, which cast twisted shadows that danced against the peeling walls. "Are we safe?" her son panted, clutching his sister and peering into the dim corners. I don't know," Sarah whispered, dread threading through her tone as she turned. In front of them stood a massive mirror, black and cracked, reflecting their terror-stricken faces back at them. But behind their reflections, something else moved, an almost imperceptible flicker, a lurking figure concealed within a shroud of darkness. A shape that hinted at familiar contours. "What is that?" her daughter gasped. But just then, the walls shuddered, and the carnival's wails rose to a fever pitch outside, begging for their return. They were not alone. The whispers trickled into the air, swirling like smoke. "Come back, you're part of the act." Sarah's heart sank. They had to confront whatever lay ahead. What price would they pay to escape this madness? And as the reflection in the mirror began to smile back at them, Sarah knew they had just made their most dangerous move yet. Would the darkness consume them, or could they fight back? The air inside the room was suffocating, clinging to Sarah like the darkness outside. She pressed her back against the splintered wall, her heart racing as the flickering bulb cast eerie, trembling silhouettes. The whispers grew louder, wrapping around her like icy fingers digging into her thoughts. Her son's voice trembled. "Mom, it's looking at us." Turning slowly, Sarah's gaze darted to the mirror again. The flickering light reflected distorted shapes, but now, the figure was clearer, an outline of her face, twisted in mockery. It was a doppelganger, an abomination of everything she was meant to protect. Its eyes were deep voids, endless and hungry. "Stay close," she hissed, clutching her children tighter around her waist. As she stepped forward, the mirror pulsed, rippling like disturbed water. The whispers transformed into mocking laughter, teasing memories of sunshine days and happy rides. It was all wrong, distorted reflections of laughter and joy now steeped in malice. "Come play with us." The figure beckoned, each word dripping with sickly sweetness. No. She gasped, dread pooling in her stomach. Suddenly, the cold wind that once grazed their cheeks turned frigid, biting through their clothes. Shadows whipped around the room, and Sarah could feel them pressing in, relentless as they clawed for entry. She turned to flee, but stumbled on the cracked floor, catching herself just before falling. "Mom!" her son cried out. "Keep moving!" she yelled, adrenaline spurring her as she pulled them both toward a door at the far end of the room, seemingly hidden just beyond the edges of light. With urgency, she twisted the handle, but it didn't budge. Panic surged through her. The laughter outside pulsed, growing, surging, like a living entity feeding off their fear. "Mom! Look!" Her daughter pointed at the mirror. It rippled again, and from its depths, hands clawed their way toward the surface. Thin, grasping fingers reached forward, scratching at the glass. Sarah's breath hitched. They were trying to come through. "Don't look. Just run," she shouted, shaking her head as if to dispel the gruesome sight. As they turned their backs, the pressure around them intensified. Walls seemed to constrict, the light dimming. A chilling wind howled through the cracks, whispering of past horrors, promises of entrapment. The tone was almost seductive. "Stay, be part of the magic." With a roar of strength, Sarah flung her body against the door, praying it would yield. It creaked open just enough for them to squeeze through. They spilled out into an adjacent room, darker and more musty than the last, marked by the scent of rotting wood and damp air. "Where are we now?" her son whimpered, eyes wide and terrified. The room was lined with dusty Carnival memorabilia, old posters, shattered dolls, and a rickety clown cart perched in the corner, its painted grin grotesquely contorted. Sarah searched for another exit, but the shadows closed in, blocking her path. "Where do we go?" her daughter sobbed, clutching her arm, desperately seeking comfort. Just as hope began to slip away into the darkness, a flash of color caught Sarah's eye. Threading through the gloom, there was an old, peeling funhouse mirror, untouched by time, a flickering memory against the dismal backdrop. It stood tall, its surface shimmering oddly, beckoning them. "Maybe we can use that to find our way out," she suggested, propelled by an instinct stronger than fear. But as they approached, laughter echoed, sharp and piercing, the sinister sounds of the carnival rising around them, taunting, hungry for their despair. In that moment, a massive shadow detached from the darkness behind them. It loomed, towering and twisted, mocking with its silent, grinning mask. "Mama?" her son squeaked, terror twisting his features. "Run!" Sarah screamed, lunging towards the mirror, plunging her hand against its cold surface. As her fingers made contact, it felt as though 1,000 voices surged through, whispering secrets mingled with promises and threats. She felt weightless, disoriented, as if the space around them was folding in on itself, but the shadow surged forward, arms outstretched, draped in darkness, its intention unmistakable. Would they be consumed by this fate? Would this reflection offer salvation, or would they shatter the thin film of hope? As the darkness rushed towards them, Sarah's scream echoed in the depths of the carnival, turning hollow. The funhouse mirror shimmered, offering a glimpse of freedom if only she could take the leap. What truth awaited them on the other side? A rush of color enveloped them, swirling around like thick smoke, swallowing the room whole. Sarah barely felt her feet leave the ground as she was yanked forward. The sensation of falling became immediate, a plummet into the unknown. With her children clutched tightly to her sides, they landed in a dimly lit space, the stench of decay and stale popcorn hanging heavy in the air. Dazed, Sarah blinked against the suffocating darkness. She pushed herself up, heart pounding like a drum in her chest, and turned to face her children. Their eyes were round with terror, she could see the faint glimmer of light reflected in them. "Are we out?" her daughter whispered, fear quivering in her voice. I don't know," Sarah admitted, glancing around. The shadows seemed to cling to them, watching, waiting. They were in what looked like an old funhouse, walls painted with grotesque grins and crooked mirrors that warped their reflections. Suddenly, a sound echoed through the halls, a distant distorted laughter that bounced off the walls and twisted into something hollow and mocking. It sent chills racing down Sarah's spine. "Stay close," she urged, trying to sound brave, though her voice trembled. They moved cautiously, the floor creaking beneath them. The disarray of broken toys and flickering lights made the air feel electric, alive with something sinister. Everywhere she looked, clowns grinned at her from twisted canvases, their painted faces a grotesque parody of happiness. Then, something pulled her gaze toward a mirror, its surface smooth and beckoning. In it, she saw not just herself but a glimpse of the hallway behind them, and there was movement. Dark shapes flitted just out of view. "Mom! What is that?" Her son pointed, his face pale. She turned, heart dropping. A figure was emerging from the shadows. It was nothing more than a silhouette at first, but it shifted, taking form, long arms stretched out unnaturally. It wore a grin, wide and too bright, a smile pulled taut over a face that could only be described as monstrous. There was no doubt it was not human. "Run!" Sarah screamed, her instinct kicking in. They dashed deeper into the funhouse, tearing through narrow paths lined with mirrors that bulged and warped around them. Their reflections danced erratically, laughing now, mocking. "Mom, I can't." Her daughter gasped, stumbling. "Get up. We have to keep moving." Sarah's words were sharp, filled with raw urgency. She dragged them forward, hearing the creature's breath heavy and labored closing in around corners. They turned a bend, and suddenly an exit loomed ahead, a door marked with carnival lights that flickered cheerfully, contrasting the horrors behind them. "Please, let it be open," Sarah whispered, praying. She reached for the handle, but the door was locked tight, refusing to budge. The giggling behind them grew louder, more fevered, as if the shadows were urging the monster on. "Mom! It's coming!" Her son cried, his voice breaking. Sarah threw herself against the door, panic clawing at her throat. The laughter morphed into a crescendo of voices, the shadows swayed and surged, feeding off their dread. In the chaos, she remembered the mirror. "We have to go back. It might lead us out." The children hesitated, trudging away from the safety of the door, but their only option flickered back far down the twisted corridor. As they turned, the shadows seemed to pulse, merging into a shape, a swirling mass of dark, looming hunger. The creature lunged, its form elongating, mouth widening impossibly. "Faster!" Sarah shouted, urging them as they dove for the mirror, its surface shimmering like a pool of water. With a breath, they plunged through just as the darkness enveloped them, swallowing all light. Would they find escape, or were they drawn deeper into a reality darker than the one they've known? A crack of laughter echoed from behind, but it felt strangely lighter. Was something waiting for them on the other side? They tumbled through darkness, and suddenly, a bright light flooded their senses. Blinking against its intensity, Sarah blinked and found herself and her children not in the horror of the carnival anymore, but in a calm, sunlit park. The grass was lush and green, children played in the distance, and the air smelled of fresh cotton candy, the sound of laughter filling her ears once more. "Mom?" Her son whimpered, his voice small and afraid. "Are we safe?" She spun around, panic bubbling up once more, searching for shadows, but nothing pursued them now. I think we're okay," she stammered. She crouched down to their level, holding their faces between her palms, looking into their wide, innocent eyes. "It's over. We're okay, we're free." Relief washed over her, but the weight of everything they had just faced pressed heavily on her heart. As she hugged them tightly, Sarah realized every shadow she'd faced was now gone. The carnival faded from view, memories dimming like the flickering lights of a dying dream. But what about the people, the ones trapped? Her daughter asked, her voice trembling with raw emotion. Tears stung Sarah's eyes as guilt flooded her. "I don't know." Maybe her voice faltered, searching for hope. "Maybe they're still alive. We need to tell someone, to make sure that no more families face the darkness we did. Just then, the sound of footsteps drew her attention. An elderly woman strolled past, eyes twinkling as she watched children play. "You're safe now, dear," she said with a knowing smile, pausing briefly. "The past is behind, but the future waits for you. Just keep moving forward." Before Sarah could respond, the woman continued walking, leaving only warmth in her wake. The words rang in Sarah's mind, echoing with an affirmation of strength she desperately needed. "Let us go home," Sarah said, softer now. Together. They crossed the park, hand in hand, feeling the gentle breeze tug at their hair like a friendly reminder that warmth awaited them. As they walked, her mind drifted back to the carnival not just as a place of nightmares, but as a chapter filled with lessons in courage and love. In a world where shadows lurked, she fought for her children, refusing to let darkness claim them. Today they would leave the past behind, yet it would always remain a part of them, a reminder of what it means to stand against fear, to fight for family. They sat on a bench, catching their breath, and while kids around chased butterflies and laughter rang out, Sarah knew they'd rediscover joy again. She could see sunlight breaking past the trees, each ray filled with hope. As she gazed at the horizon, the carnival flickered in her memory, a shadow of truth bound in mystery. There would be stories to tell, paths to heal, and echoes to silence. Together, they would embrace the future, heart steadfast against whatever came next. She squeezed her children's hands, wishing for the best while knowing that hope could often glow like stars against a deep night sky. "Mom, will it always be this good?" her son asked. "Better," she replied with a gentle smile, hope bubbling anew in her heart. Each step forward meant they would rise above past terrors, journeying toward light, forever armed with the power of their stories, their love, and the conviction that every flicker of darkness could be met with a stronger glimmer of hope. "Let us get some ice cream," she suggested brightly. The kids cheered, their spirits lifting, and as they walked away, the echoes of laughter surrounded them, reminders of the great escape and the promise of brighter days ahead. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss the next exclusive stories that'll take you on more adventures like this. Smash that like button now to show your support and feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. I want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us keep the conversation going.